April the 11th. May I have a motion to approve the agenda, please? Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Sherwood. All in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. Any disclosures of direct or indirect pecuniary interests? Seeing none, could we have a motion to move into closed, please? Councillor Andrews, seconded by Deputy Mayor McIntosh. All in favor?
Yes.
All right. We'll see you at the other link, folks.
Thank you.
To pick up right now in the open session of Orangeville Town Council meeting for Monday, April the 11th. We've just finished a closed council session, and we'll now move on to our national anthem. Ms. Pormancherry.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you to David Nair, the Artistic Director of Theatre Orangeville. We would like to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people, including the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Odawa of the Three Fires Confederacy. This meeting is being aired on public television and or streamed live and may be taped for later public broadcast or webcast. Your name is part of the public record and will be included in the minutes of this meeting. Any member of the public connecting via telephone is reminded to press *6 to mute and unmute. Please remain muted until the chair requests comments or questions from the public. As stated earlier, we had a closed session, and during that closed session, we have a recommendation that the 2022 March 7th closed council meetings be approved, that the 2022 March 21st closed council meetings be approved, and that the confidential report 5 Henry Street appeal of a committee of adjustment decision, which is INS 2022-24 regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals, affecting the municipality or local board, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, be received, and that the town's legal counsel be directed to advise the tribunal that the town takes no position with respect to the appeal filed by the applicant concerning a decision of the Committee of Adjustment to refuse their application for consent and minor variances for the property at 5 Henry Street. And that the confidential verbal report from Ed Brennan, CAO, public office holders regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees and labor relations or employee negotiations, be received, and that staff proceed as directed. Councillors, can we have a motion, please, on that? Councillor Peters, second by Councillor Taylor. All in favor? Thank you. Could we have a motion to adopt the minutes of the previous council meeting of March 21st? Councillor Taylor, second by Councillor Andrews. Any comments? All in favor? All right, moving on to presentations, petitions, and delegations. Item 11.1, welcoming Althea Ali, Dufferin County Multicultural Foundation. There's also a request that the town become a registered member of the Dufferin County Multicultural Foundation at an annual cost of $250. Ms. Ali, welcome, and go right ahead.
Hello. Are you able to see that?
It's coming up now. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for having me today and for allowing me to present the Multicultural Foundation. My name is Althea. I'm the president and founder of the Multicultural Foundation. In 2017, we first started planning the multicultural, at that time it was called the multicultural event. 2018, we actually held the very first multicultural event in partnership with the Shelburne Library and with supporters MPP Sylvia Jones, Shelburne Councillor at the time Steve Anderson, and our local elementary schools, Shelburne Police and Shelburne Fire. It was an absolutely great event. In 2019, we actually doubled in size, and the event supported not only Shelburne, but all of Dufferin County. It showcased art, poetry, food, and various entertainment from, again, around Dufferin County. And we thanked our sponsors very much for helping us to support that growth. Now, in 2020, we held the first virtual event due to the pandemic. And again, our sponsors were amazing in this. Our political leaders and community partners were amazing in this. And we had participants from around Dufferin County and beyond. Now, 2021 was a special year for us where June 27th was proclaimed by, at the time, Warden White as Multicultural Day. The Unity and Diversity flag representing Multicultural Day was flown across Dufferin County and Caledon. And we took a different approach that year where we actually wanted to give back to the community by highlighting the achievements of great leaders who were working behind the scenes. With the partnership of MP Kyle Seaback, MPP Sylvia Jones, Shelburne Deputy Mayor Steve Anderson, Caledon Councillor Joanna Downey, and the Museum of Dufferin and our Multicultural Committee, we recognize these leaders. We had a wonderful panel discussion and an award presentation. Now, 2020 is a significant year for us. It marks our 5th year in hosting the multicultural event, and we have now become a registered nonprofit to better serve our community in the promotion of diversity, inclusion, and equity, and the celebration of all cultures. As previously mentioned, our name is now Dufferin County Multicultural Foundation, and we are excited to host the 2022 multicultural event in partnership again with the Museum of Dufferin. The event will be held on June 11th, starting at 11 a.m. with a flag raising ceremony. Currently, we have a call for artists going through Dufferin County and beyond, and that's for any artist who would like to submit their artwork for the event can contact us or the Museum of Dufferin, and we also have a call for cultural performances. And this year, due to the pandemic and due to the fact that we are now in person, what we've tried to do is try to assist local businesses by hosting a vendor market so that there can be a little bit more interaction and try to support our local businesses. Our request is a donation for $250, which would mean that Orangeville, the town of Orangeville, will be a partner, registered member of the foundation. This will allow for your logo to be placed on our website with a clickable link to your website. We will also work with your D&I committee on any initiatives that support our vision. And we will share any community events or recruitment opportunities on our event page in social media. And we ask that the event be sponsored by the multicultural event be sponsored by the town of Orangeville as well. We're also asking that our event, if possible, be listed on the town's website and social media and event calendar if there is one, and that our logo be placed on your website if there is a listing for organizations or businesses. And we're asking if you can proclaim Multicultural Day as June 27th in Orangeville and have a flag raising ceremony as well. We will provide the flag for that.
Very good.
Are there any questions that I can answer?
Yes, Councillor Andrews and then Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
Well, thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, Ms. Ali. It's really a delight to have you join us as part of our council delegation. My fellow councillor Post, who's chair of the EDI, I'm co-chair. We are, in fact, very much aware of the significant multiculturalism that is very much blessing our communities across Dufferin County. And I think that, this is a reflection of recognizing, acknowledging, and supporting. I think one of the challenges, I know that Councillor Post will agree with this, one of the challenges that I know that we have had and experienced most recently is in fact to provide guidance, but also to provide, kind of a conduit to a number of our multicultural organizations or community members who are looking for ways to, recognize something that might be unique, something that should be acknowledged in some way. And I think that, your foundation here is really finding that sweet spot. And again, I do applaud you for putting this forth. And I think also providing us with the opportunity to support this in some way. I think the one question I actually have two, if you don't mind, Your Worship. How are you communicating to some of our multicultural groups within the region, specifically, of course, in Orangeville, but also, of course, across the county? And then my second question is pertaining to the event that you're talking about on June 27th.
Sure. So different foundations or organizations that we have here who are culturally based. So, for example, the Dufferin County, Indigenous, is it?
Yes,
Circle?
DCCRC.
Yes.
Yeah,
I did reach out to Debbie and offer participation in the multicultural event. And all of the different foundations have been asked as well and reached out to. And if I have missed anyone, please do reach out to me. It would be great to have each foundation and each cultural organizations participate. Currently, we have Muslims of Dufferin, we have Shelburne Cricket, we have the Dufferin County Sikh community. I did also request Celebrate Your Awesome if they would like to participate as well. Jim Waddington was previously on our committee. And so the organization was asked to participate as well this year. And again, if I've missed anyone, please do reach out.
Yeah, there are a number of other cultural groups, community members who I know that have reached out to Councillor Post, myself, and other members of council. And I know the mayor has participated in a number of proclamations for some of these community members. The one other question I do have, and it's pertaining to the event that you have coming up in June. I know that the annual fee, I guess, that your sponsorship, or not the sponsorship, but the fee of $250 is in fact, the ask from the town, but then you made reference to sponsorship of the event. Would that be an additional expense that?
No.
Okay. Well,
no, I apologize. I didn't make that clear. No. The $250 goes directly to the event and to the foundation for any workshops that we may have going on throughout the year.
I know that would provide a tremendous value for those of us that sit with our EDI committee, but I would certainly support that, Your Worship. But thank you, Ms. Ali, for being a part of our meeting this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
Thank you, Worship. I was actually going to make a motion that we become a registered member for $250.
I'll second that.
What about the additional ask there about the proclamation and flag raising, Deputy Mayor?
That I was in that all be included. Yes.
All right, and we have a seconder there, Councillor Andrews. Where would that money come from, Madam Treasurer?
Through your worship to council, that can be accommodated through council's budget, particularly the event and promotion budget line.
Okay. All right, any further comments on that item? All right, all in favor? Opposed? No? Okay. All right, Ms. Ali, thank you very much. Congratulations on getting your foundation up and running, and we look forward to supporting you in your events in the coming months.
Thank you kindly for your time.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, moving along on our agenda, we have staff reports. The first one is 12.1. This is an amendment to the traffic bylaw regarding left turn restrictions from that would be southbound 3rd Street onto eastbound Broadway. This is INS 2022-020. The report INS 2022 amendment to traffic bylaw be received and the traffic restrictions be implemented on 3rd Street at Broadway, prohibiting left turns onto Broadway from 3rd Street between the hours of 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. And that the traffic bylaw be amended to include the restriction and that staff be directed to install the required regulatory signs indicating the restrictions. We have a motion on this, please. Councillor Post, second by Councillor Peters. Anybody wish to speak to this or ask a question of staff? Councillor Andrews and then Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I know that many of us who have been caught at that intersection have had to wait, and I think that this is a great idea. Excuse me, my voice seems to be, for some reason, crackling, but I think it is an appropriate recommendation in this report. I feel that the opportunity there to look at alternative routes, and I think that my question to staff would be, I know that it was highlighted in the report, but looking at the signs that were recommended, education is always important as part of traffic adjustments, and where those signs, if this was to be approved, where they should be placed on 3rd Street. My recommendation would be probably even a little bit further north so that those might have the option to turn left onto 2nd Avenue and or taking a look at even the 1st Avenue there as well, but just a suggestion.
Mr. Koselleck, can you tell us where you're planning to put those signs?
Absolutely. Through your worship to Councillor Andrews, I think you've got it absolutely right. Our plan obviously would be to put the turn restriction signs at the intersection, but also to put advance warning signs in advance of the previous intersection to the north so that people, especially people who are new to the restriction, have an opportunity to turn before they get hung up at Broadway and forced to turn right. So we would have advance warning signs, but also the regulatory signs at the intersection.
Very good. All right, thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Taylor.
Oh, yes, thank you, Your Worship. Just ever so briefly, I was curious, it looks like the traffic report, was it paid for by the town or is it paid for by another party?
Mr.
Through you,
Koselleck.
Your Worship, this request actually initiated through the steakhouse restaurant on the corner. And I stand to be corrected. I believe they actually commissioned Triton to do the study to demonstrate that A, it was safe, and B, that there was capacity. And we, I believe we partnered with them because our interest wasn't so much the outdoor, the patio. It was more about public safety and making sure that there was adequate capacity at the abutting intersections. But definitely the business contributed to the traffic assessment, and the business was actually the one that initiated the request.
Yeah.
If I may, Your Worship.
Go ahead.
I'm just curious why that would have came to be, and it's almost a shame that it did. We seem to have support amongst councillors here that is a difficult intersection. I hadn't heard of it till it came to the council meeting tonight, and I read with great interest the report. But I guess I just feel bad that a report had to be done by a business. It's just out of sync with what I'm used to. Usually we would do that as the town, and we would go through our channels. It's odd, right? And I think unfortunate.
No.
If you want to respond through your worship, I don't disagree. When we initiate a traffic study, we commission it and pay for it. When a private business commissions a traffic study, they initiate it and pay for it, as would happen with the development or whatnot. I did actually, in the conversations we had with staff, and I'll confirm that this happened, but the suggestion that was made was we would share the cost because it was actually to joint benefit. I just have to confirm that happened.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Koselleck.
Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Kozlak. If somebody does not comply and they turn left, is there a ticket? Is there a fine for that?
Through your worship, yes, a left turn movement at an intersection where it's prohibited is an offense under our traffic bylaw, and it's enforceable, just like any other offense in the traffic bylaw. The police or a bylaw officer would have to be present to witness it. But like any other offense in the traffic bylaw, it is a ticketable offense.
Okay, so it's not just our police that would be enforcing it. Our bylaw officers can actually issue a ticket as well.
It is, yes, it is the bylaw.
Do you know how much it is approximately? Like it probably over $100 maybe? Or?
Through your worship, I don't. I'd have to refresh myself on the bylaw.
It's okay. Just nice to know that there is a ticket option there.
And if I could, your worship, I did get confirmation from staff that the offer to share the cost of the study was made. It was a shared cost.
Very good. Yeah, that's having gone through that intersection many times. It's dangerous during busy times, and you know, prohibiting that left turn certainly makes sense to me from a safety standpoint. So I'm glad you brought this report, Mr. Kozlak, and I'm certainly supportive of it. Does anybody want to make a motion on this to approve this? Councillor Andrews, seconder. We've got Councillor Sherwood. Any further comments, councillors? All in favor? All right. Thank you, Mr. Kozlak.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to 12.2. This is regarding 43A First Street. This is a proposal to build a new triplex. Recommendation that report INS 2022-023 be received and the removal of the holding symbol of application RZH 2022-01 and the bylaw to remove a holding symbol on lands legally described as Lot 14, Block 10, Register Plan 201, Town of Orangeville, County of Dufferin, municipally known as 43A First Street, included as attachment number 3 to this report, be approved. And that the residential demolition application RD 2022-01 be approved, subject to the following conditions. That site plan application SPA 2021-05 be approved and a site plan agreement be executed prior to the issuance of any demolition permit. 2, that the applicant construct and substantially complete the new buildings to be erected on the subject property no later than 2 years from the date of the issuance of the demolition permit, and that a construction waste management plan be implemented by the developer. Can we have a motion on this, please? Councillor Peters, seconded by Deputy Mayor McIntosh. Any comments or questions of staff, councillors? No. Councillor Taylor, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Through you to, I guess, is it Mr. Ward or is it Mr. Kozlak this evening? I guess I'm just curious. The timing piece has always been an issue, and I just want to make sure that we all understand what's going to happen here. It says that there's a 2-year limit. What is the repercussions for this business if they do not build within 2 years? And the reason I ask is it is on a main street. I believe that this main street is going to continue to change. This is what we're going to see on this main street, but I don't want to see it drag out for a long period of time. It's an eyesore. It's in a high traffic area, and I think 24 months is more than fair. What's the repercussions, I guess, is my question.
Through your worship to Councillor Taylor, the language of the condition is directly from the Planning Act. It's a requirement to state to the effect that it be constructed and substantially completed. Then that's not necessarily to say that as of 2 years to the date, if it's not completed, we come in and impose security repercussions through the site plan process, etc. It recognizes that things happen in the construction process, but ultimately it is intended to oblige the developer to complete the development in a timely fashion. And if it's I guess delayed in a way that we are not supportive of, we do have the ability to go in and exercise the provisions of the site plan agreement to make sure the site is restored or completed to our satisfaction.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship, through you to Mr. Ward. Sorry, I should have looked this up before I posed this question on you, but that particular property, is it on the non-designated heritage registrar? Do you know off the top of your head?
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Sherwood, it is not.
But it's amongst non-designated heritage properties, correct?
Through Your Worship, again, to Councillor Sherwood, there are not listed non-designated properties in the general area. I mean, it is an older part of town. It is more mature, and there are certainly properties in the area that are on the municipal register.
Yeah, I know it's not in the Heritage District. It would be at a proposed one if anyone did come to in the future. But I find it would kind of sad, and it's just an opinion, that a triplex would go in amongst those heritage buildings. But that's just a personal comment that, again, if we had the protection of that heritage area, if we had a designated, that we could stop things like this from happening, like a great big monstrosity if something happens to come in between two beautiful heritage buildings. So here's an example of how we need to really think through about heritage districts, and that's just a comment.
Well, before we go to Councillor Taylor, Mr. Ward, does the applicant, the developer, not have to subscribe to some sort of streetscape design that fits in with the streetscape?
Well, to Your Worship, there are certainly design objectives that any development or intensification development such as this must adhere to. It's one of the things we look at as part of a site development exercise, is to make sure there's, harmony with the development format relative to its surroundings. I would note with this area, it's in the restricted commercial residential zone, the C5 zone, and that does permit a triplex dwelling. So they are permitted to construct this or redevelop this as of right under current zoning permissions. But however, it does go into a site plan design exercise, and that's where we look at, more of the architectural merits of the development.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to say, the idea that Councillor Sherwood has, it does have merit. It's not without controversy, for sure. The piece that we need to be aware of is those business owners or residence owners that are trying to refurbish a property, the financial strain that is on these folks as they do it is immense. And in lots of cases, you'll find that you're almost better off tearing down the building. So as someone who's involved in a project right now that would have been better off having been torn down entirely versus being saved, it's not for the faint of heart. So there won't be, in my view, this is a complex problem, and I don't think there's a solution that we can just stamp on it for everyone. It's going to have to be managed on a one-off basis, which is trying at best. But I think where that area is, and putting in a multi-residential building, it's probably what's best for that area. And I applaud the business owners who are investing in our town.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. I agree. Any other comments, councillors, before we vote on this? No. All in favor? All right. Thank you, Mr. Ward. Thank you, councillors. All right, moving on to 12.3. This is standpipe rehabilitation additional funding. I'm afraid we're going to be faced with more of these as the costs of labor and materials and other supply chain issues hit the town. This is a recommendation that the report INS 2022-025 standpipe rehabilitation additional funding be received, and that the council approve the additional funds of $796,113 from the Water Reserve Fund towards a standpipe rehabilitation project. Can we have a motion on this, please? Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Andrews. Any questions? Councillor Peters, go right ahead, sir.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I guess to Mr. Postolak. I note that it includes exterior improvements to the standpipe, and where I'm going with this is, you can see that structure from, many places in town, certainly from the schoolyards, many of the ball fields, the bike routes, things like this. So I would imagine that the budget does not include for anything than more than a regular refinishing of that structure. Is that correct?
Yes, through your worship, the plan is it's a complete refurbishment of the structure inside and out, and repainting of the structure on the outside, but it doesn't include for any special graphics or that, if that's what you're alluding to, on the exterior of the building.
Yeah, thanks. And I was sort of headed in that direction. We have a large canvas in this case, and not to, frivolously look for, ways to spend money, but if this thing's not going to be touched for another 30 years, and it's something that many of our residents are going to see on a daily or weekly basis, I wonder if there's an opportunity to find some partnerships or funding or, artistic opportunities. So whether or not we pass this along to the Arts and Culture Committee, I'd just like it to be a conversation before, the project's done and we think, oh, well, we could have made that a little nicer. So I don't know what the exact process would be, but I think we should consider it.
Yeah, good thought. Our new tourism tagline, "Love, Orangeville," might be a good message to put up there, for instance. Or, Petersville, for instance, could be another thought.
That was nice. Yeah.
All right, Councillor Taylor and then Councillor Post.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I guess my comment is to you, Mr. Koselak, and my understanding and experience now with these things that we're seeing is that everything's more money. Everything is more than what we had anticipated, and I'm just thinking about our plans as we move forward. And maybe it's inappropriate because this is 12.3, and maybe it's part of something that's bigger that we talk about. But what are we going to do moving forward to not offset but plan for? Because I can't see us getting out of these things. How are we going to plan for these massive overruns that everyone in the world is going to be seeing now because of the inflation issues that we're experiencing?
Mr. Koselak.
Yeah, through your worship, I can touch on it, and perhaps Mr. Brennan could tag in. Through discussions with the CAO, we're actually conducting a review of all our projects, at least in infrastructure services, by funding source. So the idea is to relook at the capital budget, refresh all the estimates, identify the projects that are absolutely necessary to proceed, what the appropriate timing is, and identify the projects that are perhaps nice to have or might give us some information that we need, but aren't absolutely necessary to drive the program. And based on that information, we'll be able to A, update our budget, and B, update both the development charges background study and also the water wastewater rate studies that will be completed over the course of the next couple of years. The final piece that I'd add is we are looking for and may be successful in obtaining some grant money from senior levels of government that could significantly offset some of the additional expenses. And so hopefully we'll have some good news on that front in the coming weeks. But there's a number of avenues we're looking at, but the biggest thing is to really take a solid look at the capital plan and identify what projects have to proceed and what projects may be candidates to either defer or just take out of the program for the immediate time.
Thank you, Mr. Koselak. Councillor Post.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to thank Councillor Peters for his suggestion. I think it's a great idea, and one that I will take back to the Economic Development Department and speak with Ms. Phillips and Ms. Lemire and see if there's any opportunities or what they think the feasibility would be of doing some sort of partnership and perhaps maybe a cost outline of what that would look like. And I'll perhaps see if they can bring that back to council as well at a future date.
Thank you, Your Worship. The only thing I'd ask if, so the plan to paint the standpipe is a refresh of the paint and the municipal logo. But if council wants to augment that with some additional graphics, I would ask that we try and get that information quickly because the contract with council's direction today will be awarded tomorrow. And we will be pushing this contractor to get it done with all due alacrity because it is time sensitive to get the work done in appropriate weather conditions. And it's also time sensitive to get this project done because we have another project on another standpipe or another water storage facility that will dovetail with this, and it can't be taken out of service until this is complete. So we will be pushing this one pretty hard.
Right, and as someone who spent some time in the sign business, Councillor Post, whatever goes up there, the message has to be very bold. I don't know that artwork, quote unquote artwork, is appropriate for such a canvas, but some sort of messaging would probably work well there. Just my 2 cents worth. Okay, so regarding that, did we vote on this or not? I think we did not. Okay, no further questions? All in favor? All right. Thank you, Mr. Koslick. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to 12.4. This is regarding transit bus advertising rates, CPS 2022-019, a recommendation that the report CPS 2022-09 be received and the bylaw 2020-013 be repealed in accordance with the direction to outsource transit advertising following recent procurement process. May I have a motion on this, please? Councillor Andrews, second by Councillor Post, and Councillor Andrews, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question is pertaining to this report, and I see Ms. McKinney has joined us, and thank you for the detail. I know that this has been one of those items that has been on, I guess, not the agenda. Well, it had been on our previous council agenda some time ago. I first of all want to applaud the initiative because I think that having a firm that is specializing in this is going to help out tremendously. But I guess 2 questions quickly. What, in your opinion, will be the difference between be that the town taking care of this and having this advertising firm do so? And then I'll pose my second question.
Ms. McKinney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Andrews. First and foremost, it'll be someone who is specialized in obtaining advertising revenue. Council previously had asked us to look at increasing revenue sources as it related to transit, and the discussion was posed from the perspective of who is best prepared to deliver that service in a consistent way. So this ensures guaranteed revenue that will escalate over the next 5 years. So that will be the most consistent piece, as well as in parallel, there will be a reduction in the amount of services the town are needing to provide, be that pursuing advertisers or the work in IS in terms of putting things up and taking them down. So it's double-edged in that regard. It's an increase in revenue over time, as well as less staff participation in the process.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that, Ms. McKinney, because again, you know, having the expertise that exists with an outside firm like this, I think it will end up generating some significant revenue. I'm hoping. I guess my second question is pertaining to the projections. We're not privileged at this time what those rates will be, but I'm under the assumption that the progressive 5-year plan that you are referencing, that we will see some significant revenue generated back to the town. Do you have a point that a figure that you can share with us?
Absolutely. So in the first year, I have it right here, so I'm just going to read it. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Andrews, year 1 is 15,000, year 2 is 17, year 3 is 20, year 4 is 22.5, and year 5 is 25. So that's guaranteed minimum revenue, or 30% of the total, whichever is greater, and our new vendor believes that they can increase that number over time more rapidly.
Very good. No, there'll be some synergy there with the other municipalities that they work with, and they'll already have a pocket full of potential advertisers, I'm sure. Deputy Mayor McIntosh, go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. I'm glad to see this. I remember when this was brought up a number of years ago, people were paying almost triple to advertise on the town Zamboni than they were on our bus. So I'm glad to see this, that it's going to even out the playing field a bit. There's certainly a lot more coverage on a bus, a lot more visibility. So thank you.
Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship, through you to Ms. McKinney. So currently it's our communication staff that's looking after the advertisement. And the reason I'm asking you this is I call it the MyFM bus that runs around town. It the whole side is saying MyFM 101. It looks like it's the MyFM bus, but MyFM no longer is in Orangeville. So did the new radio station take over that contract? Has any thought been like, are businesses advertising on these buses that don't exist anymore? And are we removing them once their contract period ends? And is anybody monitoring that? Because there is no MyFM here in Orangeville.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Sherwood, I think the speed with which the advertising was taken down previously had been a bit of an issue. There was a transition that happened from infrastructure services to communications, as you noted, and there was catch up to be done, particularly during the pandemic, with the nature of how the transit system was working. The go forward model, though, the vendor will take care of all of those pieces. So we won't have to do the various steps that we take currently to have things added or reduced. They'll be responsible for that.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, councillors, without any further ado, all in favor? Very good, thank you. Just getting back to, okay, now next item is 12.5. This is vehicle for hire bylaw, CPS 2022-021, a recommendation that this report, the vehicle for hire bylaw, be received, and the council pass a bylaw to regulate and license vehicles for hire and to repeal bylaws 119-2004, 071-2005, 080-2008, 122-2009, 093-2010, 022-2020, and 011-2021. We have a motion on this, please. A motion, anybody? Councillor Sherwood, seconded by Councillor Post. All right, Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
Thank you, Worship. I like the bylaw. It covers everything. I just feel, especially after reading some of the correspondence that's coming up in the future of our agenda, the rates for these taxis and Uber and things like this, I just feel they should be more in line with other places. I believe Wellington is much less than what we're proposing. The taxi service in this town is abysmal. It's non-existent most of the time. I just think we need to give them all the help we can to get a reliable taxi service in this town. So I wouldn't support this the way it is. However, if we could lower the rate, I would certainly be in favor. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Sherwood, go ahead.
Yes, Your Worship. Is it possible for staff to put up the proposed rates and comparables? It makes it much easier as we're discussing it to see what we're talking about. Chris, do you, Mr. Johnson, do you have that, or Ms. Khan?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Sherwood, are you referring to Schedule N of the proposed bylaw?
You know, the one I asked you for this afternoon in an email. I wanted to see there was a rates.
Attachment 1, proposed fees from January 24th.
Yeah.
Okay, if you just give me a second, I can pull that up.
So if I could, Worship, I just, one of the things that I mentioned back in on the March meeting was, you know, obviously giving input as well as being on the BIA about trying to do some kind of, you know, like we're trying to encourage the people to come and operate here and to be very lenient in our fees. We're not trying to operate it for a profit. We're not also trying to operate it as a loss. So, but we also do want to encourage more people. I believe, Mr. Johnson, you told us back in January that there's only 15 current licenses. Is that correct?
Through your worship to Councillor Sherwood, that is correct. We have 15 licensed cars and 19 licensed drivers. That includes one accessible vehicle. Currently, we have no limousines licensed.
So it would really be nice to see that doubled. And I think we need to be a little bit more lenient on our fees to help with that. And one of the things I'd like to propose is if we look at that fee schedule, that we get more in line with some of our comparators.
Right. So thanks, Councillor Sherwood. Mr. Johnson, I wonder, have you got any of those licenses for Uber, or is Uber sort of the outlier right now?
Through your worship, for clarity on that, with respect to Uber and TNCs, we did meet with them. There's two ways to administer the program. One being we charge a base fee and then a per ride trip, or we charge a flat rate. Looking at the comparators, if you take Guelph, for instance, Guelph would probably have more than 25 to 99 or more than 100 vehicles operating at one given time. I mean, it's not an exact comparator to Orangeville, but it would be within line. Also Wellington County. When Uber was presented the materials, they did not seem concerned with respect to the fees that we were prescribing at that time, and that fee range was between $6,000 and $8,000, and now we've scaled it back to a scaled model between 1 and 24, 25 to 99, and 100 plus, or 50 plus, sorry.
Okay. So, Councillor Sherwood, I wonder, you know, if I'm looking at the Wellington County column here, which seems to be the lowest fee structure. And with respect to the TNC or the Uber Lyft line item, I wonder if we should let Mr. Johnson either negotiate the flat rate or this graduated rate at Uber's choice. I mean, I like to make it as comfortable for them as possible to increase the number of vehicles that are operating in our town. And, you know, the 807 is a low bar. The $4,000 is a higher bar, and may, you know, I didn't talk to them. I know Mr. Johnson did. So you're saying they had no problem with the $4,000. Is that right?
That's correct, Your Worship. And without having any data from Uber as the number of trips they take from Orangeville alone, it's hard to predict what a per trip fee would look like for the town in terms of revenue collection. It's just difficult to guesstimate at this time.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could just add, Mr. Johnson is correct in terms of when we were doing the public engagement, we did receive comment from Uber. At that time, the proposed fee was between $6,000 and $8,000, which is what was being proposed at that time. There were no comments received with respect to that proposed fee. Also, too, just in terms of a potential negotiation with Uber, it is important to note that Uber would just be one TNC, but we would be potentially licensing more than just Uber. So I'm not sure how far along that line we would want to go. But save and except just to say that when we did have that engagement, the fee with respect to a TNC coming from feedback from TNCs was not an issue that was raised with us.
Yeah, I'll just make one more comment before I go over to Councillor Sherwood, who's raised her hand. Is, you know, if you go with the lower fee with the TNCs, they would have to provide the data in terms of the number of trips that they take in town. It might be interesting information for us to have. And so that might be another reason to go with the lower rate plus the per trip. But, you know, at 18 cents a trip, roughly, you know, 5 trips per dollar. So, you know, 5,000 trips would be $1,000 fee to them. I don't know. Again, I have no idea how many trips are taken in Orangeville, but I know it's not enough because we are getting complaints frequently about the service level and about the inability for the taxi companies to seemingly to service our town property. Councillor Sherwood, and then we've got Councillor Post and Councillor Andrews. Go ahead, Councillor Sherwood.
I don't want to take up a lot of time so my colleagues can speak, but when I look at this fee schedule, first of all, I have an issue with the taxi owner proposal being $560 compared to $100 and $250. I'd like to see that reduced. Again, maybe that's a way of encouraging more people to sign up. I have a real problem with charging $300 to the accessible taxi owners and the green plate owners. Again, why should they have to pay such a substantial fee? We want to encourage more green vehicles on there. We want to encourage more accessible. So I don't even want to see them charged a fee, to be honest. I don't know how the rest of the people feel. And I don't think that the limo drivers should be excluded. So if we were to go back to the taxi owner and say, go with what Wellington County charges of $100 for the license, I think that that should also be mirrored for any limo drivers. Why should limo? So if I was to come in with a taxi, in order to save on the fee, I'm just going to say, well, I'm a limo driver. I'm not a taxi driver. So I think they should be treated the same. But I don't know how the rest of my fellow councillors feel, but I'm not happy with the fee proposed for the accessible taxi and the green plate taxis. And I think our taxi owner should be reduced. $560 is a lot of money.
Mr. Johnson, if you could clarify on the Wellington County fees, it says not applicable for accessible limo. So would they all just be lumped in to just one fee of, a ride share vehicle of $100?
To answer your question, Your Worship, they do not regulate them in Wellington County. Further, I'd like to add as well to Councillor Sherwood's point, the proposed fee based on the January report, we've actually recommended to remove the accessible fee, so it'd be a $0 fee. That was captured at our public meeting, and we've since proposed that within the bylaw itself.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great, thank you. Councillor Post, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, and then Councillor Andrews. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Going in line with what Deputy Mayor has suggested, I feel the same. Looking, having worked in the restaurant industry myself, I know how challenging it is to get taxi cabs. And I think the discussion is not about the TNCs. With those ones, drivers will come if people want rides. It's as simple as that. We're not super busy enough to keep Uber drivers within our borders, which is why we don't have a lot of Uber drivers. The issue that we do have, though, is that we need to bring more taxis here. So I think that the discussion that we need to have needs to be focused on the taxi owner licenses and the fees that are associated with that, rather than the TNCs. The big corporations like Uber and Lyft, they're going to pay what they need to pay to be able to work here, and I think that we've got very reasonable fees for them. Where the issue comes in is with the independent taxi drivers, and making sure that we have those vehicles accessible. And when I read the correspondence from Mr. Beatty and from Ms. Scheel, they're exactly right. We have to offer some sort of an incentive with where we're at right now to ensure that those companies want to operate here in Orangeville. We're not as busy as, somewhere like Guelph would be with the number of drivers. So we have to have another reason that they want to operate outside of Orangeville. So I do think that we need to look at the proposed rate fees for those. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Post. Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree with Councillor Post, Sherwood, and also Deputy Mayor McIntosh on their comments. I think that looking at some additional reports that have come out from the industry itself, one of the complexities, of course, that has been added is the increased cost of fuel, which is making it very difficult for those independent drivers to continue. So we have to look at some incentives that have been spoken about here by my fellow council members. So I would certainly look at the example that is on our screen right now, finding that sweet spot possibly with the Wellington County example. But I think that would be hopefully a model that would be accepted and hopefully would encourage further taxis to be at least brought into our community to support those that need it.
Following up on Councillor Andrews' comments there about fuel, Mr. Johnson, how is the rate, the metered rate set in a taxi cab in Orangeville right now?
Yes, Your Worship. So we had discussions with the stakeholders and the taxi industry itself, and they reviewed the bylaw in its entirety. Right now, we propose a drop rate, a maximum drop rate of $3.55 and a kilometer rate of $2.20. Now, the max drop rate, that can be adjusted to lower if the taxi driver so chooses. It'd be entirely up to their discretion. No comments were received from the taxi industries that we spoke with respect to the increase in fares or in regards to the licensing fees.
Right. And what about the issue of fuel surcharges? Do you know, is the taxi industry looking for fuel surcharges in this incredible increase in cost of fuel?
Your Worship, I'm not entirely sure if they are or not. That was never relayed to us.
Okay. Well, my personal feeling is I think we should adopt the Wellington County pricing model all the way down the column. And we can always revisit this in a couple of years if we feel that the fee structure is not right. But I would rather incentivize the taxi industry to try Orangeville again, because I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that complain about the lack of service, and it speaks to safety. It speaks to safety of people getting home late at night from after work. It speaks to people that are inebriated that are waiting for a cab, and because they get fed up with waiting, they jump in a car when they're still inebriated. So I really think we have to incentivize this industry as much as possible. Let's see who we got. Councillor Sherwood again, then Councillor Peters.
Yes, Your Worship. If you're putting that on the floor as a motion, I'm wondering if you would consider also, since Wellington County has not applicable under the limo owner and renew on driver, I think they should be treated the same as the taxis.
Yeah, I'm assuming that is the case, but you know that the limo drivers would be licensed under the taxi bylaw. But I agree with you, Councillor Sherwood, and we can add that $100 in under limo owner, I believe, on this column. Councillor,
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, just before before you put that motion forward, I just wanted to provide a little bit of context with respect to the fees. I can do that following Councillor Peters. I'm sorry I interjected, but I just wanted to flag that to you.
Well, why don't you give us the information now, and then we'll ask Councillor Peters in. Go ahead.
Okay.
Deputy Clerk.
Okay, thank you very much. So the context around the fees is, yes, when we're looking at this comparator with Wellington County and Guelph, it does seem elevated. However, we cannot account for what they considered when they set their fees. What we do know is that the $560 fee, for example, for a taxi owner, is inclusive of the cost that is entailed to administer the program, and the enforcement activities with relate to taxis and limos. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention of council. Should council wish to reduce those fees to a much lower fee, it is important just for you to keep in mind that that may be something that you may be asked for in the future to do for another licensing area, and so that would be generally offset from the tax levy. So right. It's just something for you to consider. That fee is inclusive of what it costs to implement the program, and then also too that fee has not been amended since 2004. In addition to that, it hasn't been something that we have heard in the outreach and in the feedback that we received as being a problem. So I do understand that perhaps members of the community have raised that as potentially being an impediment to entry for the industry, but that's not what we heard from the industry itself. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention of council in your consideration.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Clerk. So we just talked about 15 licenses, 15 to 19 licenses. So we're talking about, $8,000 in income, which really, compared to, for instance, our public transit of $400,000 a year roughly that we spend. I don't think it's significant, and I don't think it's something that we should be concerned about. I'm more concerned about getting people home safely and our restaurant customers and clientele being looked after properly. And I want to incentivize that industry as much as possible to make that happen. The licensing fees are, incidental as far as I'm concerned, and if they have to come out of the tax levy, I'm sure most Orangeville residents will agree that it's a good spend of money compared to other amounts that we're spending. Councillor Peters, go right ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I do like where the conversation's headed, and I do think the number of taxis being increased is really the prime goal of this discussion. I worry if we bring the overall fees down too low and that they're flat, then we're missing the opportunity to incentivize the green vehicle piece. So right now they're 300 as opposed to 560. So there's almost a 50% discount there. So I just want to think about the balance. If you go to 100 flat everywhere, there'll be no reason for any taxi companies to invest in greener vehicles. And so I still think there has to be at least some differential there. And I don't want to miss the opportunity to incentivize, having greener cars on the road.
All right. Have you got a recommendation? You want to go $250 for the taxi and $100 for the green plate, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not sure on the differential there. $150 is probably not going to be enough to incentivize the actual purchase, and maybe right now 300 is not enough to incentivize it. But I just, as one gets really low, the other, kind of fades away. So I don't know what that number should be, but I still would like there to be a difference between the two values.
I did speak to a taxi owner who had bought a Toyota RAV hybrid, and he said it made so much sense to him to make that purchase that it was a business case for him to invest in a hybrid vehicle, and he was very happy to spend that money, although it was a little bit extra from a normal gasoline powered vehicle. So I think as we go forward, it's going to make more and more sense to get into green vehicles with the infrastructure that's being added and the cost of fuel and such. So, but
yeah, and I don't disagree. But for some that aren't doing their homework and just look at this table, it also speaks to the values of the town and of council. So I just think it's important to differentiate.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Post.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I do like your suggestion of 250 and 100. I think that that's the right way to go that way. But my initial question was actually through you to Ms. Khan. Just to follow up on kind of what you were saying, if the cost of licensing doesn't seem to be the barrier, is there other ways that we're looking at incentivizing taxi companies to come to Orangeville? If it's not with lower fees, and what are we doing to try and get taxi vehicles here? Because I think that's really the end goal of what council's looking for through this.
That's a great question, and I think it's there's no silver bullet. Is that the saying? There's no one straight answer. What we did hear loud and clear is that insurance has become a big impediment for the taxi industry and securing of insurance. So I think from the feedback that we have received, that is the biggest impediment. So I'm not sure that it's something that's really within our control within the licensing framework. To Mr. Johnson, I'm not sure that we heard anything different or that of anything more to that, but from our perspective, that has been the biggest impact.
I would just echo what you said, Ms. Khan, with respect to that. We've heard that across the board from all taxi brokers and operators that the insurance has really crippled their business. It's almost doubled or tripled in some instances. So it is a big impediment that they are facing as an industry as a whole.
Well, one of the things that was told to me very loud and clear, I think it was stated in council, was the complaint of the taxi industry of the disruption of the rideshare companies, the TNCs, that they were being treated differently on the fee schedule than the regular taxi industry was. So again, I'm really leaning more towards this Wellington County fee schedule, perhaps tweaking the taxi licensing back up to $250 like it is in Guelph, and leaving green and accessible taxi licensings at $100. I think that would make sense to me. Any other comments, councillors? And I think we can probably take this off the screen now, Madam Deputy Clerk. Thank you. Councillors?
Yes, Your Worship, but maybe you can't see me, but I've got my hand up.
I'm sorry, Councillor Taylor, there you go. Yeah.
Choose to be relatively quiet on this thing. I found this entire industry to be frustrating. I just want to remind councillors of what we were dealing with last time, and I guess it's not revolutionary here, but we had taxis on the street that weren't safe. We had people that weren't respecting our bylaws in terms of timelines and giving short-sighted service. So I just hope that no matter what we do, hopefully the service is better, and hopefully we'll be safe as we move forward. And whatever it's going to be here is fine with me. I just don't want to go back to that realm. So I guess I maybe more pleading to yourself, Mr. Johnson, and your department, is I just want to make sure that we keep an eye on this industry as we go forward. Because as I flash back, and in my mind, 4 years ago, it was really bad. It seems to have cleaned up quite a bit, but I just don't want to go backwards no matter what we do. And I know we have a problem here in terms of fees and service, but it was in dire straits. And I just wanted to make that point. And my fellow councillors, I think what you're saying here tonight, and Your Worship, the plan that you're trying to lead us down to is fine with me. Just needs to be safe. That's all.
Agreed. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Andrews, you got your hand up again, sir.
I do, Your Worship, very quickly. Ms. Khan and or Mr. Johnson, I think one of the pieces that has been discussed here is, in fact, attracting those business owners to consider, our community. We know that, as Councillor Taylor's talked about, some of the unfortunate things that have been noted from a safety perspective, but there are, some credible firms that are out there that are, in fact, operating taxi services. And Mr. Johnson, maybe through your correspondence, or Ms. Khan, there may be a way of at least, waving the flag, saying that, we have an opportunity here for others to consider, and that may be something that may not have been thought of, but as we were discussing it, I thought that might be something to be shared.
All right, I'm going to make a motion here. I think we should adopt everything in Mr. Johnson's report, with the exception of taking this vehicle for hire bylaw report from January and adopting the Wellington County pricing column, adding taxi owner licenses at $250, limo owners at $250, and having accessible and green plate taxis at $100. That would be my my motion, and I'm wondering if somebody would second that. And
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I would second that if we take the accessible back down to 0, which is what was proposed in the amended.
Okay, I can support that. Madam Clerk, Madam Deputy Clerk, I see your hand up again. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I have the original main motion moved by Councillor Sherwood and Councillor Post. However, with respect to your amending motion, I can capture it as that as an amendment. For the sake of clarity, you're discussing adopting the Wellington County column. If I could just clarify specifically the items that you mean. I'm understanding that we're only amending the taxi and limo owner rates and the green plate vehicle rates, but there's a whole column, and I just want to make sure that we're clear on what the amendment actually is.
Right. Well, my recommendation would be change taxi owner to $250 out of the Wellington column, add limo owner at 250, and then leave accessible and green plate at 0. That would give a small incentive to owners to move towards those, and or a benefit if somebody did want to put an accessible vehicle on the road.
Okay. And with respect to the other fees, those would stay, the other proposed fees, those would remain, correct?
In today's presentation from Mr. Johnson, is that what you're saying, that report?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, that's my recommendation. Again, I guess if this is an amendment to Councillor Sherwood. Councillor Sherwood, you had your hand up again?
Yeah, I just wanted clarification how we're dealing with the TNCs. Are we going with what staff recommended of the 4,000, or?
No, I'm saying Wellington. I'm saying Wellington County all the way down.
All the way down. So the 807 for the TNCs, is that per vehicle or just one fee from Uber or Lyft or whoever, and then we get fees from each? How many Uber drivers and Lyft drivers do we have? Do we know, Mr. Johnson?
Through your worship to Councillor Sherwood, we are not aware of the total numbers. We don't have that figure.
Because I'm just wondering, maybe if Uber had no problem with paying the 4,000, they're not actually, we're not collecting that money from the Uber drivers. We're collecting it from the Uber corporation. So why not take that 4,000 if they had no problem with it?
And if I could just add to Mr. Johnston's response as well, this is going to be a new branch of licensing for the town. It will be a new area that we would be implementing, hence why we were suggesting a flat fee, because we don't yet have the data and all the numbers to know how many rides we have, how many drivers we have. And so in terms of an initial implementation, our view is to try to keep it as streamlined as possible so that we can get into the area and really understand what that implementation is. And then at a later date, come back and maybe propose an amendment to the fee structure if it's deemed appropriate at that time. But for now, we would like it for it to be, or we would recommend for it to be the 4, the 6, and the 8.
Okay.
I tend to agree with Ms. Khan, because I think we could be missing out on an opportunity here. And if it's being paid by corporate, let's take advantage of that.
I just did some quick math. The break-even point is 50 Uber rides per day over a year. That would recover the $4,000, including the 807 original fee. So you got to have over 17,000 Uber rides per year at 18 cents a ride to get to $4,000.
I think we should stick with the flat rate that the staff's recommending.
Okay, I'm good with that as an amendment to your original motion, Councillor Sherwood. So just to recap then, Madam Deputy Clerk, 4,000, 6,000, and 8,000 on the TNC row, 250 on the taxi owner row, 250 on the limo owner row, and that's the only changes that we would to the Wellington County column. So can I have a seconder on that? Councillor Andrews. Let's have a vote on that financial side of this column. Councillor Peters, did you want to talk about that, or did you want to say something?
You hadn't mentioned the green vehicles.
Yeah, leave them at 0.
Right.
And
okay.
Same with the accessible. Yeah.
Yeah, just I want to be clear. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, all in favor of that amendment? All right, and then we had Councillor Sherwood was recommending that we go ahead with Mr. Johnson's report, and you had a seconder there? It was a while ago. Who was seconding it? Councillor Post? Okay. Any further comments before we vote on this? Mr. Brennan, you lit up your screen there, sir. Did you want to make a comment?
No, Your Worship. I see the decision of council. I just want to thank staff for all of the work and research they put into this. I think it's a great job. I certainly understand the intention of council. I'm not sure it will make much of a difference of getting new taxi drivers in town. I think there's a lot more barriers for that. And I think maybe it's something, as you suggested, Your Worship, we revisit down the road, because again, maybe Uber and stuff will be the way of the future in Orangeville as well, to supplement some of our taxi drivers.
Right.
That's it.
Well,
Thank you, Bishop.
Yeah, I think, passing this change and this additional bylaw is going to spur conversation between the town and the TNC companies. So let's hope they focus on Orangeville and get some more drivers signed up. It would be great. All right. So if there's no further conversation on this, all in favor of Councillor Sherwood's motion? All right. Thank you. And again, echoing Mr. Brennan, thank you, Mr. Johnson, and the rest of the clerk staff for putting that report together. It was very good and helps us craft this policy to we hope, improve taxi service in our town. Let's hope it starts to work that way. All right, let's move on now. We've got, just a sec, I gotta get 12.6. This is an investment report for 2021 fiscal year. Recommendation that reports CPS 2022-022 investment report for 2021 fiscal year be received. Can we have a motion on that, please? Councillor Taylor, second by Councillor Post. Any comments, councillors? I wanted to ask a question because the investment summary, investment report, I should say, I don't know, one in particular was fairly dismal, and that was the town investment of $4 million in the one investment program. Income earned on $4 million in 2021 was $1,633. Madam Treasurer, can you give us some insight into this particular result for 2021 on the one investment program? This is the one where AMO is involved, is that right?
That's correct,
I spoke to somebody this morning because I'm at the Good Roads Convention in Toronto right now, and there was somebody from AMO who was flogging the one investment program, and I said to her, what happened to the returns in 2021? And she pulled what are you talking about? I don't know what you mean. And so, Madam Treasurer, can you enlighten us here on this particular program?
Your Worship. So it is a mixed portfolio, and I mean, if council wishes, we can provide further details on it. So the one investment has been part and parcel of AMO and LAS for the last 10 years. Investment, generally speaking, for the municipal sector is highly prescribed under the municipal law. When it's conducted by authorities like AMO, it actually restrains and restricts it even further. So some of our money market instruments that we invest in is, how should I put it? They're very low in yields, as in low in interest rate, because the idea is to make sure that the principal is absolutely safe. So this is in the best of times, and then you put COVID-19 on top of it, because the report that you have in front of you talks about 2021. 2020 was the height of COVID-19. That's when the market did crash, and we did see a lot of upheaval. So I cannot speak to the individual who you met at the conference, but generally speaking, AMO portfolios tend to be slightly on the low end in terms of yield, in terms of interest rates. And like I said, that is in the best of times and given the COVID-19 scenario, and we are still recovering from it. I'm not surprised to see that kind of performance. Now, that said, we are not the only municipalities who has experienced something like this. So if council wishes, I can do some further research and get back to you.
I'm just wondering, how long have we been involved with the one investment program?
I believe since 2014.
2014, it says here.
Yes.
But, as I look at the returns from the TD Canada Trust and the Edward Jones investment, TD Canada Trust is roughly $30,000 on $4 million versus 1,600, as a comparator. And Edward Jones investment of roughly a third of the same amount of money, right? 1.2 million, and the return was 10 times, or 16,987. So I don't know. I'm just wondering, should we continue on with one investment, or should we jump on the other two investment horses, being TD Canada Trust and Edward Jones? And how is it up to you to make this decision, Madam Treasurer, or how are these decisions made?
There's quite a few parts in your question, so I'll try to answer them in the order that you asked them. So first of all, just a little bit of correction, Your Worship. So the TD Canada Trust portfolio is not 4 million, it's 12.3.
No, but if you look at the if you divide it by 3, I'm talking about comparing $4 million in investment, and you take 1/3 of the 89,000 return, you get about $30,000. I'm just comparing 4 million to 4 million within the two portfolios. That's where I got the number. So we're 30,000 with TD Bank on 4 million versus 1,600 with the one investment program as a comparison.
So in terms of the TD Canada Trust, clearly it's a financial institution, so therefore they can offer more money market instruments. And given that we have a little bit more, I shouldn't use the word leeway, but we do have a little bit more leeway with in terms of what we can choose. Whereas one fund is a centralized investment. Hopefully I'm explaining this. So so we don't get to, so when I say we, the municipalities really don't get to pick and choose what instrument we invest in, because they have sort of a basket, so to speak, and they offer those investment portfolios to multiple municipalities. Can we look into this down the line? No, the other question you asked, am I the absolute authority in this? No, Your Worship, and through Your Worship to Council. So in addition to the Municipal Act, which essentially gives us a very prescribed form as to how we can invest in the market, and further to that, councillors of municipalities will have to adopt a policy, which we actually have a policy as of, I believe, 2013. So what I look for as a town treasurer is the Municipal Act for my primary guidance. The secondary guidance is definitely council policy, which we already have in place, and the tertiary guidance would be looking at the market, looking at the best bet, and then invest wisely. Now, one thing, Your Worship, if I can highlight for you, if you look at the schedule that I provided, a lot of our investments are coming to due later this year and in 2023. So that would be a great opportunity, and most of them are with TD Canada Trust. But that would be an opportunity to really look at our entire portfolio holistically, as opposed to just looking at part and parcel of our investment portfolio. So that would be a good time to really look at it. And by then, I'm hoping that the market will recover.
Okay, thank you. Again, those 3 buckets of money, though, one of them's giving us a 1.4% return, the other's 0.7% of a return, and this one is 0.04. It's completely dismal. Anyway, next question. Where's what rate is this 24 million that came from our City of Brampton sale? What kind of investment return are we getting on that?
So,
do you know?
Yes, the sale of, now that's part of ORDC. So the sale of that is now currently, and as per the board of ORDC's direction, we have temporarily placed that funding in 4 separate GICs, short-term GICs for 3 months. And I believe we are getting anywhere between 0.6 to 0.7. I don't have that number on the top of my head right now.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship. Through you to the Treasurer, I noticed in Appendix A, Madam Treasurer, you're mentioning about the maturities for the TD and Edward Jones, but the one investment program, are we in any type of long-term contract with them, or can we pull out of that at any time? Are we obligated in some kind of commitment to stay invested in that?
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Sherwood. Thank you for the question. So we are, we don't have a contractual obligation per se. So these investments are binding to the extent of the maturity date. So I really have to go back and see, like I said, it's a mixed portfolio. So there's different instruments in there, and very similar to the TD Canada Trust portfolio. So there are different maturity dates. So we are bound to those dates, not so much a contractual obligation with one fund per se. Hope that makes sense to you.
Yeah, it does. Thank you for clarifying that, Madam Chair. It's just I didn't notice that in your summary that specific one mentioned. So my only comment is that in 7 years we've made $259,000. If we had taken that $4 million and bought lots of property in Orangeville, boy, would we have made a ton of money.
Well, we're not allowed to do that, I don't think, are we, Madam Chair?
No, I'm just saying that's just a general comment. But anyhow, thank you, Madam Treasurer. I turn to you still for your expertise in our investment. I'm no way an expert at that at all.
Okay, so can we have a motion to receive this report then, please? Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Andrews. Anybody want to make a final comment on this? No? Okay, all in favor? Receiving the report, thank you. All right, now I'm moving on to 12.7, Parkland Reserves Financial Report. This is a recommendation that report CPS 2022-023 Parkland Reserves Financial Report be received. Can we have a motion to receive that report? Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Sherwood. Any further comments on this report? All in favor? All right, and then 12.8, financing leases outstanding 2021, recommendation that the report CPS 2022-024 financing leases outstanding be received. Can we have a motion to receive this report, please? Councillor Peters, seconded by Councillor Andrews. Any questions, councillors? I had one question. I think Mr. Osmond, if you're on the call, maybe you could come on and answer that again for us. There was one item on that list, which was 650 Riddell, a building which the town owns. And it seems to be presented on this list as if there's a lease being paid. But in actual fact, we're paying for services provided by the OSPCA. Is that correct, Mr. Osmond? Is that what that line item is?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just for clarity, and that is a contract that's up in 2022, so we're taking a look at this. I'll make a couple of comments, but I'll also pass it over to the treasurer. She might want to speak to it. The contract, when it was written back in 2005, in actual fact, it was written from a lease perspective, and then it was a schedule to the contract that covered off the animal control side. And what you see on the schedule you're looking at, that the list of leases is the 60,000 plus that we pay to the SPCA for the purposes of taking care of the animals, enforcement, euthanasia, so on and so forth. So that's what that's for. It's for a service side of the contract, and it's really not technically the lease side. And whatever they did back in 2005, that we have it on the agenda, and we're actually meeting with the SPCA this Wednesday, and we'll be taking a look at that contract, the lease, and what we'd like to do is sever the two, because right now they've been co-mingled, and we want to be able to split that and have two separate, one for a service contract and one for the lease on the building itself. And it's our property, of course, and we lease it to them for the purposes of operating a SPCA in Orangeville.
Right. Yeah, when I looked at it, it just seemed odd to me that be characterized as a lease when it's, we're buying a service there, right? Anyway, I'm sure it'll get sorted out, Mr. Osmond. Thank you for answering my question. Ms. Syed, in the future, will that line item be put somewhere else in our financials?
Yes, Your Worship. So as Mr. Osmond has indicated, that this is something that we are currently looking at. So depending on the outcome, definitely yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions on this lease report? All right, all in favor of receiving it? Thank you, councillors. Moving on to correspondence, we've got a number of items of correspondence, including from Credit Valley Conservation regarding their MECP mandate. We also had letters that were referenced in our previous conversation on vehicles for hire from Mr. Beatty from the BIA and also from Allison Shield. And then we have a letter from Town of Shelburne regarding the municipal comprehensive review of Dufferin County. Can we have a motion to receive those items, please? Councillor Andrews, second by Councillor Post. Any comments on this? All in favor? We also have committee board and board minutes, 14.1 through 14.6 regarding Committee of Adjustment minutes, Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Committee minutes, Heritage Orangeville minutes, Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee minutes twice, and also the Police Service Board minutes. Can we have a motion to receive these minutes, please? Deputy Mayor McIntosh, Councillor Taylor seconding. Any comments or on these? Councillor Andrews, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Worship. This is pertaining to the accessibility, Joint Accessibility Advisory, and it is the update on the accessibility lift at Tony Rose. Councillor Post, I know you chair that committee. I'm not sure if you have an update, but I just was curious because I saw reference of it in the minutes.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. The update that you see in the minutes is that we were initially asking for, or it was initially asked of us when the replacement was coming. It was brought forward by a resident that the lift was down. So at our committee level, we moved to support the cost of replacement. And at the time, I was going to ask for council to also top up the cost of replacing the lift. As it turns out, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Osmond for more information, but as it turns out, it was able to be replaced under their regular maintenance budget, so I did not need to come to council to ask for further funds. I just received an update today from town staff that it is scheduled to be replaced over Easter weekend. With us being down to one pool, it's been extremely difficult to get a free time in the pool to do the lift replacement. So my understanding is it will be completed over Easter weekend, and I expect to have an update from the team shortly after Easter that the lift is fully back up and running and ready to go. So hopefully anybody who needs it will be able to access that pool again as of very early next week. And if I missed anything, Mr. Osmond, please feel free to jump in.
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Post and Council. No, well covered, Councillor, and it will be installed this weekend. And you're absolutely correct. We're quite busy, and we need to do a little bit of modification to the deck, which will be quite noisy, and it'll make a little bit of mess. So we want to do that when there's no one around. The new lift will be in the pool this week, and we'll do that installation. It'll be nice and usable by Monday or Tuesday.
That's great news.
Thank you. All right, all in favor of receiving these minutes? Thank you. Any notices of motion prior to meeting? I see none. Any notices of motion at the meeting? I see none. Any new business, councillors? I see none. Ms. Porman-Cherry or Madam Deputy Clerk, any questions from the public?
And through you, Worship, there's no one currently on the line.
All right, thank you. We've got a couple final items to deal with here. We have bylaws 19.1 through 19.7. Could we have a motion to approve those bylaws, please? Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Andrews. All in favor? And a motion to adjourn, please. Councillor or Deputy Mayor McIntosh, Councillor Taylor, all in favor? All right, folks, thanks very much. Have a good night.
Night, everyone.
Have a good evening, everyone.